Jerome collapses against his apartment door, sobbing uncontrollably. In his trembling hands is a check with more zeros than he's ever seen in his life. "I don't understand," he whispers to the woman in the business suit. "Yesterday I lost my job. Today you're telling me that fixing an old lady's bicycle just changed your life forever," Patricia says quietly. 24 hours ago, Jerome Washington was a broke mechanic who couldn't even afford his daughter's school books. When an elderly woman needed help with her broken bike, he didn't hesitate. He used his last tools, his last hour, his last chance. His boss fired him on the spot. But Jerome had no idea who that old lady really was. He had no idea that his one act of kindness, without thinking about the cost, would lead to this moment. A moment that would make a grown man cry tears of pure disbelief. What Jerome didn't know was about to change everything. But to understand why this moment would change everything, we need to go back 24 hours. The alarm screams at 5:30 a.m. Jerome Washington rolls off his mattress on the floor, every muscle aching from yesterday's 12-hour shift. His studio apartment above the laundromat barely fits a bed and a milk crate that serves as his kitchen table. The stack of bills on that crate tells the whole story. Electric, past due, rent, final notice. His phone buzzes with a text from his sister Maya. "Jerome, Jasmine needs $200 for school supplies. I know money's tight, but..." Jerome checks his bank balance. $180.43. His daughter Jasmine is 8 years old. She lives with Maya because Jerome can't afford childcare while working 60-hour weeks. Every night, he lies awake doing math that never works. Rent, utilities, child support, groceries, always $500 short of making it work. But Jerome never gives up hope. At 6 a.m., he's already under the hood of Mrs. Carter's Honda at Eddie's Auto Repair. Steam rises around his face as he works. His uniform is clean but worn thin, the name patch slightly crooked from too many washings. "Third car today," he mutters to himself. Mrs. Carter needs this running for her cleaning jobs. Can't let her down. Jerome has a gift. He talks to cars like old friends. He can diagnose problems that leave other mechanics scratching their heads. Customers ask for him specifically. Mrs. Rodriguez brings him homemade tamales. Old Mr. Peterson saves lottery tickets for Jerome for good luck. "You're going to make it big someday," Mr. Peterson always says. "Got that special touch." Jerome dreams of opening his own shop. He has notebooks full of business plans, sketches of a garage with Washington Automotive painted on the window. Late at night, he calculates startup costs, draws floor plans, imagines teaching neighborhood kids about engines. But dreams don't pay rent. Eddie Morrison owns the shop. He's a decent man running a struggling business. Chain stores are killing small operations like his. Eddie hired Jerome when other places wouldn't even give him an interview. Jerome knows Eddie sees potential in him. That's why Jerome works harder than anyone else. He stays late without overtime pay. He fixes jobs at cost for customers who can't afford full price. When Mrs. Carter needs her transmission rebuilt, Jerome charges her only for parts. When Mr. Peterson's truck breaks down before his cancer treatment, Jerome works 2 hours past closing to get it running. Eddie notices everything. Sometimes he shakes his head when Jerome waves off payment from elderly customers. Sometimes he reminds Jerome that charity doesn't pay the bills. But Jerome can't help himself. His grandfather taught him, "Fix what's broken, help who needs help." The weight of responsibility crushes him some nights. Jerome knows Eddie can barely afford 2 mechanics. He knows every discount he gives comes out of Eddie's pocket. He knows Eddie hired him when others wouldn't, sees potential when others see risk. But Jerome also knows what it's like to need help and not get it. When he was Jasmine's age, his mother worked 3 jobs to keep their lights on. Neighbors helped when they could. Mrs. Williams down the hall brought Jerome dinner when his mom worked late. Mr. Santos taught him to change oil in the parking lot behind their building. "Community takes care of community," his grandfather always said. "You give what you can when you can." Now Jerome gives everything he can. He teaches Sunday car maintenance classes for neighborhood kids in the shop's parking lot. He shows them how to check oil, change tires, and jump batteries. Some of these kids have never had anyone teach them practical skills. "Knowledge is power," he tells them. "Learn to fix things, you'll never be helpless." Jerome's phone buzzes during lunch. Maya again. "Jasmine made honor roll." She wants to call Daddy tonight and tell him about her science project. His heart swells and breaks at the same time. Honor roll. His baby girl is brilliant, curious about everything. She wants to be an engineer someday, maybe design cars like the ones Jerome fixes. But Jerome missed her school science fair last month. Had to work a double shift to make rent. Maya sent pictures of Jasmine explaining her volcano project, beaming with pride. In the background, other kids had their fathers helping with displays. Jerome saves every penny he can for Jasmine's future. The college fund sits at $127, the same amount in his checking account. Not nearly enough for the brilliant future she deserves. The afternoon sun beats down on the shop. Jerome wipes sweat from his forehead, leaves a streak of grease across his brow. His back aches from bending over engines all day. His hands are permanently stained with oil and calloused from years of manual labor. But he keeps working, keeps hoping, keeps believing that taking care of people is what makes life meaningful, even when, especially when, you have nothing left to spare. Jerome has no idea that his philosophy is about to be tested in a way that will change everything. What he doesn't know is that in just a few hours, helping one more person will cost him his job and give him his future. Jerome had no idea that helping one more person would cost him everything. Tuesday afternoon, 3:47 p.m. The heat shimmers off the asphalt at 95 degrees. Jerome is closing up when he hears a voice behind him. "Excuse me, young man?" He turns to see an elderly white woman standing beside an old blue bicycle. Despite the scorching heat, she's impeccably dressed. Pearl earrings, pressed slacks, leather handbag, but her face shows clear distress. "I'm sorry to bother you," she says, slightly breathless, "but my bicycle chain broke, and I desperately need to get to the pharmacy before they close." Jerome notices details immediately. Her shoes are expensive leather but worn at the heels. Her handbag is designer quality but clearly old. When she speaks, there's quiet dignity in her voice. No begging, no dramatics. "I don't drive anymore," she explains, checking her watch nervously. "I walked here hoping someone could help. The pharmacy closes in 45 minutes and I need my heart medication." Jerome's mechanic instincts kick in. He kneels beside the bicycle, examines the chain. This isn't a simple break. The entire mechanism is seized with rust. Decades of neglect have turned what should be a quick fix into major surgery. "Ma'am, what's your name?" "Elizabeth," she says. "Elizabeth? Well, just Elizabeth." Something about her hesitation registers, but Jerome focuses on the problem. The chain didn't just snap, it's completely corroded through. This will take serious work. Eddie emerges from the shop, keys jingling. "Jerome, we're closed. I need to lock up and get out of here." He notices Elizabeth and his expression softens slightly. "Ma'am, try the bike shop on Elm Street. They might still be open." Elizabeth's face falls. "I called them already. They close early on Tuesdays." Her hands tremble slightly as she checks her watch again. "I've been walking around for 2 hours trying to find help." Jerome sees her open her wallet. Just a few crumpled bills and what looks like a pharmacy discount card. Barely enough for medication, let alone repairs. Eddie's voice carries an edge of impatience. "Jerome, I've got somewhere to be. We can't stay open for every person who walks in here." But Jerome watches Elizabeth dab sweat from her forehead with a tissue. She's trying to stay composed, but he sees the fear in her eyes. Missing heart medication isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. "How far is the pharmacy?" Jerome asks. "About 2 miles. I thought I could walk it, but..." She gestures at the heat waves rising from the pavement. Jerome makes his decision. "I can fix this. Give me 20 minutes. Eddie's face darkens. "Jerome, we're done for the day. I've got appointments." "Just 20 minutes, Eddie. I'll lock up after." "No overtime," Eddie snaps. "You understand? Fix it fast and get out." Jerome nods, already wheeling the bicycle into the shop. Elizabeth follows, apologizing repeatedly. "Please don't apologize," Jerome says, selecting tools from his workbench. "My grandfather always said, 'Fix what's broken, help who needs helping.'" As Jerome works, Elizabeth watches intently. She notices the organized tools, the clean workspace, the customer thank you cards taped to the wall. She observes his technique, methodical, careful, professional. "You're very skilled," she comments. "How long have you been a mechanic?" Jerome tells her about growing up working on cars with his grandfather, about his dreams of opening his own shop someday. Elizabeth listens with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions about his background, his goals. "What kind of shop would you want?" she asks. "Something that serves the community," Jerome explains while working. "Not just fixing cars, but teaching people. Maybe training programs for kids who need opportunities." 20 minutes becomes 30. The chain requires complete replacement. Jerome is sweating, racing against the pharmacy's closing time. Every few minutes, Elizabeth checks her watch. "I could call them," she suggests. "Explain the situation." "Let me try one more approach," Jerome says, attacking a particularly stubborn gear mechanism. Finally, at 4:35 p.m., the chain clicks into place. Jerome tests it thoroughly, adjusts the brakes, checks tire pressure. The old bicycle runs smoother than it has in years. "How much do I owe you?" Elizabeth asks, reaching for her nearly empty wallet. Jerome sees those few bills again. He thinks about his own empty bank account, his unpaid bills, Jasmine's school supplies. Then he thinks about Elizabeth walking 2 miles in 95-degree heat with a heart condition. "No charge," he says firmly. "Just get to that pharmacy safely," Elizabeth insists, but Jerome refuses. "My grandfather's payment is enough." As Elizabeth prepares to leave, she studies Jerome's face carefully. Something passes in her expression: recognition, approval, decision. "What's your name?" she asks. "Jerome Washington." "Jerome," she repeats slowly. "I won't forget this kindness." What Jerome doesn't know is that Elizabeth has just made a mental note that will change his life forever. Jerome thought helping Elizabeth was the right thing to do. He had no idea it would destroy his career. Elizabeth mounts the bicycle carefully, testing the pedals. Jerome adjusts the seat height, checks the handlebars one final time. "Easy on those turns," he advises. "The brakes are responsive now, but take your time getting used to them." She nods, starts pedaling slowly across the parking lot. At first, she wobbles slightly, then gains confidence. The bicycle moves smoothly, chain clicking rhythmically like a well-tuned machine. "This ride is better than when I bought it 30 years ago," she calls back. Jerome watches until she turns the corner onto Main Street, satisfied with his work. He begins cleaning up the workspace, organizing tools back into their proper places. 5:23 p.m., Eddie's truck pulls into the parking lot. Jerome looks up from wiping down his workbench. "Just finished with the bike, all locked up and ready to go." Eddie's face is already red before he gets out of the truck. "Jerome, what the hell are you still doing here?" "Like I said, I just finished. Everything's clean and I told you no overtime." Eddie's voice echoes across the empty lot. "Do you have any idea what that costs me?" Jerome sets down his rag carefully. "Eddie, I didn't clock out. This was on my own time." "Your own time? In my shop? Using my tools? Working on my property?" Eddie paces now, frustration boiling over. "You think I'm stupid? You think I don't understand liability when I see it?" Jerome tries to explain about Elizabeth, the medication, the emergency situation. Eddie cuts him off. "Emergency? Jerome, this is a business, not a charity ward. I've got insurance concerns, scheduling concerns, overhead concerns. You can't just decide to help every person who walks in here with a sob story." "Eddie, she's an elderly woman. She needed her heart medication." "That's not our problem." Eddie slams his hand against the workbench. "We fix cars, not bicycles. We work business hours, not whenever you feel generous. And we sure as hell don't work for free." Eddie pulls out his phone, shows Jerome the screen. "You know what my profit margin was this month? 3%, 3, and you're giving away labor and supplies because some old lady batted her eyelashes? It wasn't like that. Oh, it never is. You're always finding reasons to work late, stay extra, help people for free. You think that makes you a hero? It makes you a liability." Jerome stays quiet, knowing Eddie's struggling to keep the business afloat. Competition from chain stores has been brutal. 3 mechanics quit last year because Eddie couldn't afford to keep them. Eddie grabs Jerome's time card from the office, studies it with growing anger. "And don't think I don't notice you've been clocking out before you finish jobs. Eating labor costs yourself. You think that helps me? It screws up my books." Jerome realizes Eddie's been watching him, documenting every time he stayed late without pay to finish jobs properly, every time he absorbed costs to help customers who couldn't afford full price. "Eddie, I was just trying to help the business." "Help the business? Jerome, you're killing the business. Customers expect these discounts now. They ask for the Jerome price. Do you understand what that does to my reputation, to my profit structure?" The argument escalates quickly. Eddie explains the chain reaction Jerome never considered. When Jerome works for free, customers expect others to do the same. When Jerome stays late, it sets a precedent Eddie can't afford. When Jerome fixes things outside their normal service range, it creates liability issues. I've been trying to figure out how to handle this for months, Eddie continues, his voice getting louder. You're a great mechanic, Jerome, maybe the best I've ever had, but you're not running a business the way a business needs to be run. Jerome's heart sinks. He sees exactly where this conversation is heading. I can't afford an employee who thinks he's running a charity. I can't afford the overtime, the liability, the customer confusion. I can't afford someone who makes business decisions without consulting me. Eddie, please, I'll clock in for everything. I'll stick to cars only. I'll follow every rule exactly. You'll what? Change your entire personality overnight? Eddie shakes his head. Jerome, this isn't about one bicycle. This is about patterns. This is about you thinking with your heart instead of your head every single time. Eddie disappears into the office, returning with Jerome's toolbox. He starts loading Jerome's personal tools, wrenches and screwdrivers Jerome bought with his first paychecks 3 years ago. Eddie, wait. I need this job. My daughter, my rent. I know about your daughter. I know about your sister, your money problems, all of it. That's exactly why I can't afford to keep you. Eddie's voice softens slightly, but his resolve doesn't waver. You're desperate. So you make desperate choices. You give away what isn't yours to give. Jerome pleads desperately. He offers to take a pay cut, promises to follow Eddie's rules exactly, swears he'll never help another customer for free. But Eddie's mind is made up. This isn't about money, Jerome. It's about judgment. Today you showed me that when push comes to shove, you'll choose helping strangers over keeping your job. I can't build a business on that kind of decision-making. Eddie hands Jerome the heavy toolbox, metal clanking against metal. 3 years of building relationships with customers, learning Eddie's systems, proving his worth. Gone in one afternoon. Eddie, that woman needed help. Her medication. Jerome, I get it. I really do. But I needed an employee who helped me keep this place running. Instead, I got someone who helps everyone except his boss. Jerome walks to his locker on unsteady legs. He empties it slowly. Photos of Jasmine, his backup uniform, the business plan notebooks he kept hidden there. Tomorrow, other mechanics will arrive to find his space empty. As Jerome loads his truck, toolbox rattling in the bed, Eddie watches from the doorway. His expression shows conflict, anger mixed with genuine regret. For what it's worth, Jerome, you did the right thing today, just not for the right employer. Jerome drives home through rush-hour traffic, hands shaking on the steering wheel. His phone buzzes with texts from Maya, but he can't bear to read them yet. How will he explain this to his sister? How will he make rent next week? How will he face Jasmine, knowing Daddy lost his job helping a stranger? But even as despair settles over him like a heavy blanket, Jerome can't bring himself to regret helping Elizabeth. Some things matter more than paychecks. What Jerome doesn't know is that this belief is about to pay off in ways he never imagined. Jerome had no idea that losing his job was only the beginning. Jerome's apartment, 7:30 p.m. He sits on his mattress, staring at his phone. Maya has called 3 times. The voicemails pile up, but saying the words out loud will make his unemployment real. A knock at his door surprises him. Jerome opens it to find Elizabeth standing there, transformed. Gone is the slightly frail woman from this afternoon. Her posture is straighter, more commanding. Her clothes are the same, but she carries herself differently. Behind her stands a tall woman in an expensive business suit, clearly some kind of assistant or professional aide. Jerome? Elizabeth smiles warmly. I wanted to thank you properly. Mrs. Jerome realizes he never learned her last name. Elizabeth Hartwell. And this is my assistant, Patricia Morrison. Elizabeth steps forward with purpose. I got my medication safely, thanks to you. But when I got home, I realized how inadequate my thanks were. Patricia steps forward, holding a thick envelope. The paper looks expensive, official. Miss Hartwell would like to offer you proper compensation for your services today. Jerome glimpses the envelope's thickness. Whatever's inside looks substantial, far more than a bicycle repair could ever be worth. That's not necessary, Jerome says quickly. I was happy to help. Elizabeth studies his face carefully. There's something different about her now. A sharpness in her eyes, an authority in her bearing that wasn't there this afternoon. Jerome, you saved my life today. I don't mean that dramatically. I mean it literally. Missing 2 days of heart medication could have been catastrophic for someone with my condition. Jerome notices details he missed before. Elizabeth's posture suggests someone accustomed to being in charge. Patricia defers to her in a way that implies Elizabeth holds significant authority. Through his window, he sees their car, a pristine black Mercedes sedan with a driver waiting inside. Please, Elizabeth insists, gesturing toward the envelope. Let me do something meaningful for you. Jerome shakes his head firmly. The help you needed, that's what people should do for each other. No payment required. Elizabeth exchanges a meaningful glance with Patricia. Something passes between them, a look of recognition, approval, perhaps even satisfaction. Jerome, Elizabeth says carefully, I understand you work at Eddie's auto repair? Jerome's stomach drops. Worked, past tense, as of today. Elizabeth's face shows genuine distress. Oh no, I hope my bicycle didn't cause problems with your employer. No, Jerome says quickly. Well, yes, but it wasn't your fault. Eddie's been under financial pressure, and I guess helping you was the last straw? Jerome, if my request cost you your job, then I absolutely must make this right. Elizabeth's voice carries new urgency. You don't owe me anything. I made my choice knowing the consequences. Patricia whispers something in Elizabeth's ear. Elizabeth nods thoughtfully as if confirming a decision already made. Jerome, Elizabeth says, what if I told you what you did today? The way you handled the emergency, your technical skills, your customer service approach. What if I told you that's exactly the kind of person I've been searching for? Jerome doesn't understand. Searching for what? I have business interests, Jerome. Various companies, various needs. Someone with your technical abilities and your character. That combination is extremely rare. Jerome feels uncomfortable with the direction of this conversation. I appreciate any offer, but I don't even know what kind of business you're in. Elizabeth smiles mysteriously. Let's just say I recognize exceptional talent when I encounter it. She reaches into her purse, pulls out a business card. Jerome notices its heavy cardstock with embossed lettering, but he can't read it clearly in the dim hallway light. Jerome, would you consider meeting with me tomorrow morning? Let me properly explain how I might be able to help your situation. Jerome takes the card hesitantly. I don't want charity. Trust me, Elizabeth says with quiet confidence. What I'm considering isn't charity. It's strictly business. As they leave, Jerome catches Patricia speaking quietly into her phone. Yes, I'll confirm the 6 a.m. appointments. And Patricia, cancel the board meeting if necessary. This might take priority. Jerome closes the door, examines the business card under his apartment's fluorescent light. He can make out E. Hartwell and what appears to be a corporate logo, but the company name remains partially obscured by shadow. Something about Elizabeth bothers him. Not negatively, but like a puzzle piece that doesn't quite fit. Her confidence, Patricia's deference, that Mercedes, the way she spoke about business interests. Tomorrow, he'll discover what Elizabeth Hartwell really wants. Jerome had no idea who Elizabeth Hartwell really was, or why fixing her bike would attract national attention. That night, Jerome can't sleep. He researches E. Hartwell on his phone, but finds nothing concrete, just scattered business references that lead nowhere. At 2 a.m., urgent knocking wakes him. Mrs. Rodriguez stands in the hallway, still in her nightgown. Jerome, you need to see this. She leads him to her TV. Late-night local news is running a story. Local auto shop fires employee for helping elderly woman. On screen, cell phone footage of Jerome working on Elizabeth's bicycle, filmed by someone across the street. The reporter explains an anonymous tip brought this story to their attention. They interview Eddie, who looks uncomfortable. I run a business. I can't have employees making unauthorized decisions. Then customers defend Jerome. Mrs. Carter calls him an angel. Mr. Peterson explains how Jerome stayed late to fix his truck before cancer treatment. The reporter's closing line chills Jerome. The identity of the elderly woman remains unconfirmed, but sources suggest she may be more significant than initially apparent. Jerome's phone explodes with calls from unknown numbers, text messages from strangers. Maya calls at 2:47 a.m. "Jerome, you're on TV. Jasmine's friends are calling. Her daddy's famous." "Famous for getting fired," Jerome mutters. But Jerome feels uneasy. How did news crews find out? Who filmed him? What did that reporter mean about Elizabeth being more significant? Wednesday morning, 6 a.m., unknown number calls. "Mr. Washington, Channel 7 News. We understand you're meeting with the woman you helped. Can you confirm her identity?" Jerome hangs up. 5 more media calls follow. At 7 a.m., Jerome looks outside. 3 news vans park on his street. Reporters with cameras wait outside his building. His phone buzzes. Text from unknown number. "Jerome, this is Elizabeth. I see you're getting media attention." "Don't speak to reporters yet. Our meeting is more important than you know. See you at 9 a.m. E.H." Jerome stares at the message. Elizabeth somehow has his number, though he never gave it. How does she know about the media circus? He examines her business card again in morning sunlight. The logo becomes clearer, a stylized H surrounded by what looks like gears or industrial equipment. In small print at the bottom, words Jerome missed last night. Hartwell Industries, building America's future. Jerome's hands start shaking. Jerome was about to discover that Elizabeth Hartwell wasn't just any elderly woman. 9 a.m. sharp. The black Mercedes pulls up to Jerome's building. He slips out the back entrance, avoiding the cluster of reporters camped outside. Patricia opens the car door with professional efficiency. "Good morning, Mr. Washington." Inside, Elizabeth sits calmly in a sharp business suit. The car's interior is pristine leather with climate control and what appears to be a mobile office setup, laptop, folders, multiple phones. "I apologize for the media circus," Elizabeth says as they drive downtown. "That wasn't supposed to happen." "How did they find out?" Elizabeth hesitates briefly. "Someone recognized me at the auto shop. Word travels very quickly in certain circles." They pull into the parking garage of the downtown Marriott. As the elevator rises to the top floor, Jerome notices Patricia carries a leather portfolio and speaks quietly into a Bluetooth earpiece. "Yes, confirm her for the 11 a.m. call, and make sure legal has those contracts ready for review." The elevator opens to reveal not a hotel room but an executive conference suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook the entire city. A polished mahogany conference table dominates the space, surrounded by expensive leather chairs. "Please sit," Elizabeth says. Her demeanor has completely shifted. Gone is any trace of the slightly frail elderly woman from yesterday. This Elizabeth moves with purpose, authority, and command. Patricia opens her portfolio, spreads documents across the table with military precision. Jerome sees blueprints, financial statements, corporate letterhead with logos he recognizes but can't quite place. "Jerome," Elizabeth begins, settling into the chair at the head of the table. "Yesterday you demonstrated something I've been searching for in the business world for decades: moral judgment under extreme pressure." Jerome still doesn't understand where this is leading. Elizabeth continues, her voice taking on the tone of someone accustomed to boardroom presentations. "What if I told you that bicycle repair was essentially a test?" Jerome's blood runs cold. "A test? Not intentionally, of course. I genuinely needed my medication. But when I watched you work, your attention to detail, your problem-solving methodology, your willingness to sacrifice personal interest for a stranger's welfare, I realized I was witnessing exactly the kind of character I need in my organization." Patricia slides a document toward Jerome. At the top, in bold corporate lettering, Hartwell Industries, confidential executive brief. Jerome's eyes widen as he reads the key statistics. Asterisk founded. 1987 asterisk annual revenue. $3.20. Billion asterisk. Primary business. Automotive manufacturing and innovation. Asterisk CEO. Elizabeth Hartwell. Asterisk. Employees 12,000 plus worldwide. Jerome looks up, completely stunned. You're the Elizabeth Hartwell, Hartwell Industries?" Elizabeth nods with quiet satisfaction. "Founder and CEO. We manufacture automotive parts for Ford, General Motors, Tesla, and 15 other major automotive companies. Our innovations are currently running in vehicles across America and internationally." Jerome's mind races frantically. Hartwell Industries. He's installed their parts hundreds of times. Their quality control standards are legendary in the industry. Their corporate ethics policies are considered the gold standard. Yesterday, Elizabeth continues, I was returning from a routine cardiology appointment downtown. My driver was stuck in construction traffic, so I decided to bicycle home through the neighborhood where several of our manufacturing facilities operate. Patricia adds, Miss Hartwell believes in understanding her customers and workforce from ground level, not just boardroom reports. When my bicycle broke down, Elizabeth explains, I expected to encounter someone willing to help for appropriate compensation. Instead, I discovered someone willing to sacrifice everything for the right moral reason. Jerome feels completely overwhelmed. Why are you telling me this? Elizabeth stands, walks to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Jerome, I'm 78 years old. I've built Hartwell Industries from a two-person garage operation into one of America's largest automotive suppliers. But I'm facing a challenge that money and experience cannot solve. She turns back to Jerome, her expression serious. I need someone to help pioneer our expansion into direct consumer automotive services, someone who understands both the technical and human elements of automotive care. Patricia slides another document across the polished table. Proposed Partnership Agreement, Washington Automotive Center. Jerome's vision blurs as he reads the executive summary. Asterisk initial investment, $750,000, asterisk business structure, partnership. Jerome, 45% ownership, asterisk projected first-year revenue, $1.20. Million asterisk employee capacity, 12, 15 full-time positions asterisk community impact, automotive training programs. You want me to run an automotive business? I want you to pioneer an entirely new model, Elizabeth corrects with precision. Combine traditional repair services with cutting-edge workforce development programs. Create a facility that serves individual customers while training the next generation of automotive technicians. Jerome scans the detailed proposal, his hands shaking. Initial funding, $750,000. Projected 3-year valuation, $2.8 million. Training scholarships for underprivileged youth, community job creation initiatives. This is impossible. I don't understand why you would... Elizabeth sits back down, leaning forward intently. Jerome, yesterday I watched you make a decision that cost you your livelihood but potentially saved my life. That's exactly the kind of judgment I need in a business partner. But you don't know anything about my management experience, my business education. I know you organized Eddie's shop more efficiently than he managed it himself. I know customers specifically requested your services. I know you've been developing comprehensive business plans for years. Elizabeth gestures to Patricia, who produces photocopies of Jerome's notebooks, the ones from his work locker. Jerome stares in disbelief. How did you get those? Eddie delivered them to my office this morning, along with a formal recommendation letter and a personal apology for terminating your employment. Patricia slides the letter across the table. Eddie's handwriting fills the page. Jerome Washington is the finest mechanic and the most decent person I've ever employed. I allowed financial pressure to cloud my judgment. If you're intelligent, you'll hire him for whatever position you need filled. Elizabeth leans forward. Jerome, I didn't plan to test you yesterday, but when I observed your character under pressure, I realized I'd discovered something extraordinarily rare. Someone who prioritizes people over profit while possessing the technical skills to make profit sustainable long-term. Jerome's hands tremble as he holds Eddie's letter. I need time to process this. Of course, but Jerome? Elizabeth's voice softens meaningfully. That little girl you mentioned, Jasmine? This partnership would ensure she could attend the finest schools and that you could provide the stability you've been desperately struggling to give her. Jerome's eyes fill with tears. Elizabeth somehow knows exactly what matters most to him. Take tonight to consider everything, Elizabeth says. But tomorrow morning I need your answer. Not just for my company's expansion plans, but for the 200 families in this community who could benefit from the employment opportunities this facility would create. Jerome was about to learn that Elizabeth's offer was even bigger than he imagined. That evening, Jerome sits in Maya's kitchen while Jasmine does homework. Maya studies the partnership proposal, her expression shifting from skepticism to amazement. Jerome, do you understand what this is? Maya whispers. This isn't just a job offer. This is generational wealth. Jerome has been thinking the same thing, but hearing Maya say it makes it real. The startup funding alone would set up college funds for Jasmine and her cousins, Maya continues. Look at this profit-sharing structure. If the business performs as projected, you'd earn more in 5 years than the last 15 combined. Jasmine looks up from her math homework. Daddy, why do you look worried? Did something good happen? Jerome kneels beside her chair. Maybe, baby girl. Maybe something very good. Are you going to come to my school play next week? Jerome's heart breaks. He's missed so many of Jasmine's events because of work schedules, financial stress, exhaustion. Yes, sweetheart. No matter what happens, Daddy will be at your play. That night, Jerome calls Elizabeth's number. She answers immediately. Jerome, I've been hoping you'd call. I have questions. Ask them. Why me? Really, you could partner with established business owners, people with track records, people with collateral. Elizabeth pauses. Jerome, can I tell you about my first employee? Okay. 1987. I was 40, recently divorced, trying to start an automotive parts company in my garage. I needed someone who could work with precision but didn't require a huge salary. I hired a 19-year-old kid named Marcus, brilliant with engines, but he'd been in trouble with the law. Jerome listens intently. Marcus had been stealing car parts to support his little sister after their parents died. When I hired him, everyone said I was crazy, hiring a thief to work with valuable equipment. What happened? Marcus worked for me for 37 years, became my head of production, then VP of operations. He invented safety protocols we still use today. When he retired last year, I gave him a $2 million bonus. Jerome processes this quietly. Jerome, I learned something from Marcus. People who've struggled understand the value of opportunity. People who've sacrificed for others will sacrifice for a mission. Technical skills can be taught, but character can't be. Elizabeth continues. Yesterday, you lost your job helping a stranger. That tells me everything about your decision-making priorities. But what if I fail? What if I can't manage employees, handle the business side? Jerome, you've been managing Eddie's customer relationships for years. You've been training neighborhood kids in your spare time. You've been solving complex problems under pressure. You already have management skills. You just haven't had the title. Jerome feels a shift in his thinking. Maybe Elizabeth sees something he doesn't see in himself. There's something else, Elizabeth adds. This morning, I received 12 phone calls from your former customers. They heard about your situation on the news and wanted to know how to support you. Jerome's chest tightens. 12 calls? Mrs. Carter offered to invest her life savings in any business you started. Mr. Peterson said he'd work for free as your first customer service representative. A woman named Rodriguez said she'd handle your bookkeeping for the first year at no charge. Jerome starts crying. These people barely know him, but they're willing to invest in his future. Jerome, that kind of customer loyalty doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you've consistently treated people with respect, solved their problems completely, and charged fairly for your work. Elizabeth's voice becomes businesslike. Here's what I'm proposing specifically. You'll own 45% of Washington Automotive Center. Hartwell Industries will own 55%, but you'll have full operational control. After 5 years, if performance targets are met, you can buy out our share at a predetermined price. Jerome does quick math. 45% ownership of a business projected to be worth $2.8 million by year 3 means his stake would be worth $1.26 million. The facility will include 8 service bays, a customer lounge, and a training center where you can teach automotive skills to young people from the community. Part of our mission will be workforce development, giving kids alternatives to the streets. This catches Jerome's attention. Teaching has always been his passion. We'll also establish the Jerome Washington Education Fund, providing automotive training scholarships for underprivileged youth. Jerome realizes Elizabeth has thought through every aspect of this partnership, considered not just the business opportunity but the community impact. Elizabeth, what happens if something goes wrong? What if the business fails and I lose everything? Jerome, the initial funding isn't a loan, it's an investment. If the business fails, you don't owe us anything. But more importantly, I've been in business for 38 years. I don't invest in ventures I expect to fail. Elizabeth pauses. One last thing, Jerome. This morning, Ford Motor Company called me. They heard about our partnership plans and want to discuss making Washington Automotive Center a pilot location for their new customer service initiatives. Jerome's jaw drops. Ford, one of the biggest automotive companies in the world, wants to work with him. I need you to answer tomorrow morning, Jerome, not because I'm pressuring you, but because opportunity has a timeline. Ford's pilot program launches in 6 months. If we're going to be part of it, we need to move fast. Jerome hangs up, stares at the proposal document spread across Maya's kitchen table. Tomorrow morning, he'll give Elizabeth Hartwell his answer. But tonight, he already knows what that answer will be. 6 months later, Jerome discovered that saying yes had changed more lives than just his own. Before, Jerome's old routine. 5:30 a.m. alarm, instant coffee, checking bank balance with dread. Driving to Eddie's shop in a truck that needed repairs he couldn't afford. Working on other people's cars while dreaming of his own business. After, Jerome's new routine. 6 a.m. alarm, real coffee from the espresso machine in his corner office. Reviewing yesterday's customer satisfaction scores and employee development reports. Walking through Washington Automotive Center, his name on the building, checking in with his team of 14 technicians. The facility transformation. The old Hartwell Industries warehouse has been converted into a state-of-the-art automotive service center. 8 service bays equipped with the latest diagnostic equipment. A customer lounge with comfortable seating, free Wi-Fi, and a children's play area. Floor-to-ceiling windows flood the workspace with natural light. Jerome insisted on this, remembering how dark Eddie's shop always felt. The training center occupies the building's east wing, classroom space for 30 students, hands-on workshop areas, and a comprehensive library of automotive repair manuals in both English and Spanish. Community integration Mrs. Carter brings her Honda for service every month, even though it runs perfectly. I just like supporting Jerome, she tells other customers. She's become an unofficial greeter, helping elderly customers understand their service options in Mandarin and English. Mr. Peterson works part-time as customer service coordinator, exactly as he promised. His encyclopedic knowledge of every customer's automotive history makes him invaluable to the operation. Mrs. Rodriguez handles bookkeeping and has expanded her role to include human resources. She's hired her nephew David as a trainee mechanic and her daughter Maria as the customer relations manager. Student success stories. The training program has graduated its first class. 18 young people from the community, all now employed at local automotive businesses. 5 have been hired directly by Hartwell Industries manufacturing plants. 3 have started their own small repair services. Marcus Thompson, 19, was headed for trouble before enrolling. Now he's Jerome's lead diagnostic specialist, earning $45,000 annually with full benefits. Jasmine, now 9, comes to the shop after school, does homework in Jerome's office, and helps with simple inventory tasks. She's learned to identify dozens of car parts and can explain basic engine maintenance to visitors. My daddy teaches people how to fix cars, she tells her classmates proudly. And when I grow up, I'm going to teach people how to fix rockets. Business growth, month 1, 150 customers served month 3, 400 regular customers month 6. 600-plus customers monthly, with a 2-week waiting list for appointments. Customer satisfaction ratings, 98.5% positive reviews. The Google Reviews section reads like testimonials. Jerome's team treated my car like it was their own. Honest pricing, excellent work. They even arranged my ride home. This place restored my faith in mechanics. The Ford partnership, Ford's pilot program launch, brings national attention to Washington Automotive Center. Jerome became the first minority-owned shop selected for Ford's Community Excellence Initiative. The announcement ceremony takes place in Detroit, with Jerome accompanied by Elizabeth and 5 of his top student graduates. The Ford contract provides expanded training opportunities, access to cutting-edge diagnostic tools, and a direct pipeline for students to be hired by Ford dealerships nationwide. Annual contract value, $400,000. Media coverage. Local news returns 6 months later for a follow-up story. From Fired to Thriving, How One Act of Kindness Transformed a Community. The segment shows Jerome teaching a class of eager teenage students, Elizabeth touring the facility with Ford executives, and emotional customer testimonials about the shop's impact on their lives. National automotive trade magazines feature Washington Automotive Center as the new model for community-based automotive education and service. Personal transformation. Jerome has moved to a 3-bedroom house with a yard. Jasmine has her own room, decorated with automotive posters and a bookshelf full of science and engineering books. Maya visits every Sunday for family dinner in their actual dining room. Jerome's daily uniform, professional mechanic's coveralls with Washington Automotive Center owner embroidered on the pocket. He carries himself differently, confident, purposeful, respected. The ripple effect. 4 other cities have contacted Elizabeth about replicating the Washington Automotive Center model. Jerome consults on the planning process, shares his training curriculum, helps other community mechanics develop their own partnerships with Hartwell Industries. Eddie Morrison visits the shop monthly. Jerome hired him as a consultant for small business operations. "I taught you how to fix cars," Eddie jokes during their weekly coffee meetings. "But you taught me how to fix communities." Financial independence. Jerome's personal financial transformation. From $180 in his checking account to a 6-figure annual income, plus his ownership stake in a business now valued at $2.1 million. More importantly, Jasmine's college fund is fully funded. Jerome has established college funds for his nephew and 4 neighborhood kids whose parents couldn't afford to save. Jerome keeps his old toolbox in his office, the same tools Eddie handed him the day he was fired. Now they're displayed on a custom-built rack with a plaque. From Mrs. Rodriguez and the Washington Automotive Center family, thank you for showing us that doing right leads to doing well. 1 year later, Jerome would discover that the story had come full circle. 1-year anniversary. Jerome arrives at Washington Automotive Center early, as usual. But today the parking lot is packed with dozens of cars, many with out-of-state plates. Inside, the customer lounge overflows with familiar faces. Customers, students, community members. Maya and Jasmine wear matching Washington Automotive Center t-shirts. Elizabeth enters with a Ford Motor Company representative and a camera crew. "Surprise!" the crowd shouts. Elizabeth approaches Jerome with a radiant smile. "1 year ago today, you fixed my bicycle and lost your job. Today, we're celebrating how that act of kindness transformed an entire community." The Ford representative steps forward. "Mr. Washington, based on your pilot program's success, Ford is expanding the Community Excellence Initiative to 25 locations nationwide, all modeled after the Washington Automotive Center." Jerome feels overwhelmed. 25 more communities will have access to training, jobs, and economic stability. The full circle moment. Commotion outside draws everyone's attention. Through the windows, Jerome sees an elderly man struggling with a broken bicycle, chain dangling uselessly. The crowd watches as Jerome immediately walks outside, kneels beside the bike, and examines the problem. The man explains he was heading to the celebration, but his chain snapped. Jerome disappears into the shop, returns with tools. Within minutes, the bicycle runs smoothly. "How much do I owe you?" the man asks. Jerome smiles, remembering Elizabeth asking the same question exactly 1 year ago. "No charge, just get where you need to go safely." Elizabeth joins them. "Jerome, meet Robert Carter, Mrs. Carter's husband. He's wanted to thank you for everything you've done for his family." Robert grips Jerome's hand firmly. "My wife says you're an angel. Today I see she's right." The tradition continues. As celebration continues inside, Jerome notices 3 former students in the parking lot, helping people with car problems, refusing payment. David Rodriguez explains, "You taught us that fixing things isn't about making money, it's about making communities stronger." Jerome realizes the values Elizabeth recognized, putting people before profit, using skills to serve others, are being passed to the next generation. Final reflection. That evening, Jerome sits in his office with Elizabeth. Through the windows, evening classes continue in the training center. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't helped that day?" Jerome asks. Elizabeth considers this. "Someone with your character would have found another way to make a difference. But I'm grateful it was my bicycle that broke." Jerome looks at his desk photo. Jasmine at the science fair, first place ribbon for automotive engineering. "Thank you for seeing something in me I didn't see." "I didn't create your character, Jerome. I just gave it a bigger stage." As they leave, Jerome locks the door, reads the sign. Washington Automotive Center. Building cars, building community, building futures. Tomorrow, the cycle of helping and transforming lives continues. Jerome's story reminds us that kindness isn't just about the moment you give it, it's about the ripple effects that follow for years to come. One small act of generosity, fixing a bicycle for a stranger, transformed not just Jerome's life, but hundreds of lives in his community. Students who now have career paths, families with reliable automotive care, young people with real alternatives to the streets. Sometimes we hesitate to help because we think we can't afford to give. Jerome's story proves we can't afford not to give. The next time someone needs help, whether it's a broken bicycle, a kind word, or just your time, remember Jerome. You never know who's watching, who's learning, or whose life might change because you chose compassion over convenience. What small act of kindness will you perform today? If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember that doing good leads to good things. Hit that like button, subscribe for more inspiring stories, and tell us in the comments, what's one way you've helped a stranger recently?